Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are in deep dive for 20 minutes Dynaway EAM for Business Central functionality, and I will be showing you today a risk assessment, which is part of Safe Work module, which we have. So my name is Krzysztof Białowąs. I'm working in Dynaway and will be able to present you this functionality which we have in the system. So let me just go to the system directly. And just give me a second. Okay. You should see Business Central right now. So what is all about the risk assessment? You may know that there are when you are working with some items, with some specific task, or maybe with some asset categories or whatever, there can be some risks related to that, and there may be also some precautions which you can apply to such risk assessment. I know the companies which were doing such risk analysis inside in Excel and have reviews and so on for that. So we have very similar functionality which you can control inside Business Central and also assign it to some specific records. So I will just start with a short setup which we can have. So Safe Work setup. And here you have information about the risk assessment, but the most important setup which you need to do at the beginning is the number of series for sure for the risk assessment. What we can find here for the risk assessment, as I said, we have some hazards and you can specify if you need to choose it from the list, then you just need to specify disallow changes for the description. You can choose it from the list but change the description, then you can set up the allow changes. And you also can specify that we don't have a dictionary of hazards or precautions, we just type manually the text. The same setup you will find for precautions. We also have possibility to archive automatically the risk when the risk assessment is released automatically, then the archive is created, which I will show you as well. And since it would be really nice to have some workflow and approvals for the risk assessment, that we don't need to do it on paper and show the auditors, for example, that the risk assessment was approved, you can also use the workflows for that. And when you are using workflow, which I will show you in a second, you also can specify what are the default risk assessment approvers, and you can, very similar as we had last time with the permit to work, you can set up someone as a approver or someone as a reviewer. So first the approvals will go to the all reviewers. They need to also review it and confirm that they review it, and then to the approvers. You can have also many approvers. You should have at least one approver. That's the minimum setup if you want to do it, and you can have default ones, or you can just use the approvals also in other place, which I will show you. How set up the workflows, and that's very easy. If you will go to workflows, you can find in the workflows, if I will just click new workflow from template, you can see that in the maintenance you have a workflow template which is called risk assessment, and pretty much that's what I already did here. So I just create a new workflow for the risk assessment, and I just enable it. And pretty much that's all. If you are familiar how the Business Central workflows works, you can of course modify it that maybe only one approver need to approve it, not all of them. In this case, the setup is that all of them need to approve. So how to, when we already have a setup, you can you can start creating risk assessments. So you can find it in the Safe Work and in risk assessments, or you can use the risk assessment manager role center, and also you can find it there. If I will click it, let's create a new risk assessment. So the number will be created automatically. Then I can just put a description, because my Business Central just stopped a little work. Let me just put the risk assessment for mixers. I can put the revision date, so I can also know when we should revise the risk assessment, for example, till end of October, and you can see that status is open. What I can specify on the risk assessment, I can specify hazard and also precautions. That's not mandatory. I can have a hazard code, so I have a dictionary which you can set up by yourself. This is some thing which we have, for example, that there is a risk that there is a health impact by mold. I can also have a hazard category, so by default, but I also can have multiple categories if I would want to. And the most important in the risk assessment, you can specify what is the impact of it, what is the probability, and also what is the frequency. Of course, those are a dictionary which you can define by yourself, but also the most important here is a value. So it can be like a code, but it can be also the value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in my case. So if I will just choose that this is the critical one, the probability is very high, and also my frequency is very high, you can see that my initial risk is automatically calculated. And this initial risk is calculated from the values which you have seen. So in fact, it multiplies the value 5 by, in this case, by 3, and also very high, also multiply by 6. So 15 multiplied by 6, it's a 90. This is how you can specify the initial risk, and of course you can have multiple risks for it. Also, the same situation with the precautions. You can have a precaution which is related to this risk assessment. So, for example, remove water, remove liquids, or whatever you will choose here, or you can just type the description as well. Then you also can specify who is responsible for the action, when the action should be taken, and if the action was taken, and when it happened. If I'm ready, of course, I can have multiple lines in both of places. If I'm ready, I can send it to approval if I have approvals turned on, or I can just release it if if I don't use the approvals. So in my case, I just send it to approval. It will be automatically approved with status release because I'm only one person in the database, but you can track all the approvals here in the approvals log. So you can see that my risk assessment has been approved. It was sent by me, and it was also approved by me. That's why a standard Business Central approval works. It's automatically approved. But since I also have a setup that it should automatically do the archive when we approve the risk assessment, you can see that I have number of archived version, which is here, and I can see all the versions. So let me just reopen this one. I can change something. So now my impact is my frequency, my probability, let's say, because I put some actions, is low. So my initial risk is also low. I can again send it for approval. And you can see that it's again approved. My number of version is now higher, right? Because it's automatically stored as an archive. If I will reopen it, and now what I can do with the version, I can also restore the version. So let's imagine a situation that someone make mistake or something. I can always go to the version, which will show you all the information, also who archived it and when it was archived, and I always can restore the version. So let me just restore the version which we had. Okay, I just need to open it one more time. You can see now my initial risk and my probability came back because we just restored the version. And again, I can approve it from here. Okay, but where we using the risk assessment? As you can see, it's basically you can use it without EAM functionality just to store the information, but you also can use it together with EAM. So you can assign this risk assessment in many places. Okay, I name it mixer. Maybe that's not the best name which I should use, but for example, you can assign it to the work types. So you know that we have a work types in work order which we are using. You can, for example, assign when we are cleaning, I will have my additional risk assessment. So I can just put it in the work types. After that, when I will assign it, I can also see where this risk assessment is assigned. So you can see that it's assigned to the work type and to the cleaning work type. So where we can assign the risk assessments? We can assign risk assessment, as I remember, in 6 places. Let's count it. Item card. This is where we can work type, the second one, the asset category, the asset itself, asset location, and work order plan. So in 6 places you can assign the risk assessment and have information that when we're doing something with this particular record, there is a risk involved, and there are also some precautions which you should take. And where we can see it, if we will open any work order which will contain such risks, so you can see it here. You will see information that at least one active risk, hazard, or precaution exists for this work order. So if I will open it, I will see all the risks which are related to this particular work order. So technician can see what are the risks, what can happen if I'm doing this particular work order. And as you can see here, we have dust and mold, and that's because we have risk assessment related to the asset category. It was assigned to the asset category, which is UV lamps, and also that we have work type cleaning, and this is what we assigned a few minutes ago. And as you can see, I don't have anything, like I have precautions related to the open windows. So if I will change something, so instead of using cleaning, I will change it to electric work. My actual risk can also change, because now when we will open it, you can see that I don't have the risk related to the cleaning, because this always shows you everything what is aggregated view from many risks which you can assign. So with many risk assessments. So this is where you can see what are the risks when we are doing the work order. And when I close the let me just close this one. Post and close. posted work orders. It was number 39. So when I will close the work order, I also can see the risk which were at the moment when I was closing. So this is a snapshot of all the risk which has been in the database. Even if I will now change this risk assessment, I will still see the history of all the risk which has been assigned to the work order at the moment when I was executing and closing the work order. So this is how you can also track what has happened, what has been actions which we were taking during that to make the precautions, right? So that's how the risk functionality works. So just to summarize, you can have risk assessments inside Business Central. It's part of the safe work. You can have approvals, or you can just only register the risk without the approvals. That's also possible. You can assign the hazards and precautions to the risk assessment, and you can have also versioning and restore that version to the risk. Then you can assign the risk assessment to records like asset category, and then show it to the technicians to see what are the risks when we are dealing with such work order. So that was from my side. But I just want to say that we have a library of videos of all our webinars, which you can find on the dynaway.com, and going to the video library, there you will find all our webinars. And next week we have resource allocation and scheduling. So my colleague will show you what we have with the scheduling board, what changes we did. Later we will have a small break because of the some holiday period and conference period, but we will come back later to show you other new features which we have in Dynaway for Business Central. That was all from my side, a little shorter than 20 minutes, but I hope you like the functionality, and if you will have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you very much.